Besides the futuristic setting and the world building, the thing that keeps bringing Avatar fans back to theaters are the clans and the wild variations that we see between them. In the first movie, we saw the Omatikaya, or Jake and Neytiri's forest people, and Way of Water introduced the Metkayina people, who are basically the sea-dwelling reef clan, and finally, we have the Mangkwan, the seemingly super intimidating and heretical ash people from Fire and Ash. Now, the thing is, all these clans have differences when it comes to their anatomy, as well as their culture and lifestyle, and by the end of this video, you'll see how pretty much every aspect of each clan was shaped by the environment they call home. So, without further ado, let's cut to the chase, shall we? Number 1. Skin coloration and patterns. Of course, when you see someone from Pandora, the first thing you notice is their skin color. That sounds a bit racist, but they're giant blue aliens, so that's just kind of the reality of it. Anyways, the Omatikaya are the first Na'vi clan we saw in the Avatar movies. They're blue, like very, very blue, but at the same time they're vibrant and perfectly suited to the dappled light of a rainforest. However, the second Na'vi tribe, the Metkayina, have a teal-green tint to their skin. They're more cyan or turquoise, with flowing ripple-like stripe patterns that clearly resemble sunlight dancing on the water, especially the turquoise ocean water. In other words, it almost feels like their very skin reflects the ocean. The Metkayina also have counter-shaded bodies. Their bellies and faces are lighter in color, much like a reef shark's underside, and this provides a degree of camouflage to the Metkayina in the bright water. Meanwhile, the Mangkwan, or the Ash people from the third movie, look completely different at first glance. You'll see they have this ashen gray or even charcoal black color to their skin, but this somewhat ghostly hue isn't their natural skin color at all, it's war paint. In fact, the Mangkwan coat themselves in volcanic ash and pigments, essentially painting over their true skin. Underneath the war paint, they're born the same blue as any forest Na'vi, and in fact originally had the dark blue tone of the Omatikaya. Additionally, some Na'vi may have colors that are entirely different from the skin colors of the three clans, and this happens because of mixed breeding, and of course, such individuals have other crossed features as well, but more on that later.
I see you now. Sahika the Metkayina.
2. Eyes and underwater vision. Let's talk about their eyes. The Omatikaya, like most Na'vi, have these yellow-orange eyes with elliptical pupils, which are what you need to see clearly in the dim light of Pandora's jungles. The Metkayina, however, evolved a very different set of eyes, mostly because they spend half their time underwater. Their eyes are considerably larger and often blue-green in color instead of yellow, which, as we mentioned, is an adaptation for seeing clearly underwater. If you look closely, Metkayina eyes are almost owl-like in the sense that they're big and round enough to pull in more light in the ocean depths. Not just that, they also have a nictitating membrane, which is basically a translucent third eyelid that can sweep across the eye. This built-in pair of what we can only describe as goggles protects their vision while diving, much like how a crocodile's inner eyelid works. The result is that the reef Na'vi can see underwater as naturally as they see on the land, or as clearly as we do. By comparison, neither the forest Omatikaya nor the ash-dwelling Mangkwan have any such special ocular anatomy. The ash people's eyes appear to be the standard Na'vi gold when not obscured by soot, since biologically they're the same race as the forest Na'vi and haven't developed the Metkayina's aquatic traits. 3. Tail shape and function. If you saw these clans from behind, wait there, no judgment, this is science, you'd spot another pretty crazy difference in the form of their tails. The Omatikaya have the traditional Na'vi tail, which is long, slender, and ends in a tuft of dark hair. That tuft swishes for balance and even expresses emotion. Of course, it doesn't speak or make faces, but as far as expressing emotions is concerned, you can think of a cat or dog tail, but on a 9-foot-tall blue alien. I mean, when cats raise their tails or when dogs wag theirs, it means something, right? That animal is experiencing a particular emotion. Now, a Metkayina's tail is slightly different. This one's flat and wide like a paddle, with no hair tuft at the end. The first time we saw their broad tails in the Way of Water, we thought it almost looked like a dolphin's fluke, but longer and more agile. This paddle tail is a powerful rudder, which helps the Metkayina propel and steer as they swim. It's amazing how much speed they get from a few flicks of that wide tail, and they can effortlessly outpace a forest Na'vi underwater. As for the Mangkwan clan, they've kept the standard tail form of their forest ancestors. By all accounts, war paint aside, an Ash clan member has a long tail with a fuzzy tuft, just like an Omatikaya. There's no evolutionary pressure in a volcanic plain that would redesign their tail. After all, they're not doing much swimming or tree leaping. That said, you might see Ash warriors decorating their tails with beads, wraps, or even sharpening the tuft with ash, and we personally wouldn't put it past them for intimidation, but structurally, it's the familiar Na'vi tail we know. 4. Limbs built for land versus sea. Much like the tails, the limbs of the three Na'vi clans are also pretty different from each other, and wow, do the reef people have the most awesome arms and legs. The Metkayina have noticeably broader forearms and calves, with extra fin-like flaps of skin called strakes running along them. These act like built-in flippers or oars. When a Metkayina paddles through water, those straked arms and legs catch and push against the current, which gives them powerful thrust. It's the same principle as a scuba diver wearing fins, except nature designed those, which makes them, like, way cooler. In the movie, you can actually see the difference as well. The Sea Clan's limbs look almost wing-like when spread out as they glide underwater. By contrast, the Omatikaya have the default Na'vi limbs, which are lean and muscular arms, and their legs have no fins or webbing. I mean, it makes sense because you don't need that when you dwell in a forest, right? But of course, the forest Na'vi can swim, but next to a Metkayina, they move like an awkward newbie flailing without flippers. What about the Ash people, though? Being essentially forest Na'vi by biology, the Mangkwan don't grow any special aquatic appendages. Their arms and legs are shaped like the Omatikaya's and are built for terrestrial life. In fact, given their warlike culture, many Ash warriors bulk up their arms with gear rather than genetics. 5. Hair and head aesthetics. Even the hair of the three Na'vi clans resembles who they are. The Omatikaya usually have dark, straight hair which they braid very intricately and often around their neural queue. Furthermore, they decorate these braids with beads, feathers, and other trinkets. Take Neytiri's long braids, for instance. It's a practical style for the forest that also carries a cultural meaning, and in truth, each bead on a songcord braid represents a memory. The Metkayina, however, seem to prefer a curly or wavy hair texture. Many reef Na'vi wear their hair in shorter, beach-friendly styles. For instance, Soraya has loose, curly locks that frame her face, which suits a people who are in and out of the water all day. Those curls might even be an adaptation, or just cultural fashion, to help their hair dry quicker in the sun. Some Metkayina also tie their hair up in buns or top knots when swimming in order to keep it out of their way. Now, the Mangkwan's clan has an absolutely different approach when it comes to styling their hair. The Ash people draw inspiration from fierce ancient cultures of Pandora, and of course, some of that inspiration comes from ancient earthly tribes and people. We believe their haircuts are modeled after those Mesoamerican warrior tribes, and if you think about it, this explains the partial shaves, mohawks, and angular cuts. On top of that, the Ash folks adorn themselves with some headpieces that are pretty dramatic, for lack of a better word. Mangkwan warriors have been seen wearing horns, spikes, and sharp adornments on their heads and bodies. They also wear crowns of what looks like dire horse horns woven into their hair. The clan's leader, Varang, has a silhouette with what could be bone or wooden protrusions complementing her dreadlocks. All these hairstyling choices give the Ash clan their rather intimidating look and appeal, as if their hair itself has turned into a weapon. So yeah, each clan's hairdo resonates with their way of life. You know who's who just from the hair alone. 6. Body build and physical strength. The three clans also physically build muscle in different ways. The Metkayina are generally stockier and more barrel-chested, especially the males, who have broader chests and shoulders than their forest counterparts. When Jake Sully first meets the sea chief, Tonowari looks like he could wrestle a whale and 100 Dwayne Johnsons without breaking a sweat. A broader chest likely means larger lungs and greater upper body strength, both of which are huge advantages for freediving and swimming. The Metkayina spend hours a day fighting currents, diving with their ilu mounts, and holding their breath underwater. All that activity, plus the whole evolutionary pressure, gave them strong arms, thick necks, and a bit more bulk. In fact, Avatar: The Way of Water showed Jake's family struggling to keep up with the Reef Clan's endurance, and they had to train their lungs just to swim for a few minutes without gasping. Over time, Jake's kids developed more muscle and stamina, so much so that Loak even jokes about getting stronger arms from all the swimming. The Omatikaya, on the other hand, have a leaner, wiry build. They evolved to run swiftly through jungle terrain and climb super tall trees, so they're lithe and agile. Jake and Neytiri's bodies in the first film are slender but very toned. Bodies that are built for speed and agility rather than prolonged brute force. A forest hunter needs to be able to climb a 30-meter tree in a minute or silently stalk prey on a branch. tasks that favor a slimmer frame with long, sinewy muscles. Even though Omatikaya mighty warriors, like Sute, looked more like marathon runners compared to the Reef Clan's swimmer-sprinter physique. And what of the Mangkwan? Initially, they would have shared the Omatikaya's general build. However, years of hardship in the Ashes have left their mark. The Ash clan is slightly gaunter and more hardened than the other Na'vi, essentially all skin and bone, and this comes from surviving in a wasteland. Food in the scorched land is scarce, and the Mangkwan subsist by raiding, which isn't exactly conducive to bulking up. They have a wiry strength, with lean muscle etched on sharp frames, and not an ounce of fat to spare. Of course, when we see them on screen, they appear to be muscular and ripped in a wiry sort of way because, let's face it, hardship in battle builds muscle too. 7. Tattoos, war paint, and scars. Apart from their distinct biology, the Na'vi also mark their bodies in unique ways. For the Metkayina, it's all about tattoos. The Reef Clan extensively tattoos their skin with beautiful flowing designs made from special sea inks, but the purpose of these tattoos goes beyond simple decoration or fashion. It tells a story. Each Metkayina earns tattoos that chronicle their personal accomplishments and milestones. For example, a young Metkayina may receive their first small tattoo after completing their rites of passage into adulthood. As they achieve more, like mastering deep-sea hunting or bonding with a skimwing, they add on more ink. The placement of the tattoos has meaning too. For instance, Tonowari, the clan leader, has pretty bold tattoos across his chest and arms. According to their tradition, chest tattoos symbolize the safe embrace of their home island, while arm tattoos represent the protective but exposed seawall. A seasoned hunter might therefore have heavily tattooed arms, for all the danger faced in the open ocean, and maybe fewer markings on their chest. The Omatikaya, in the films at least, don't show a comparable tattoo practice. Forest Na'vi seem to leave their skin mostly natural, aside from their bioluminescent dot markings which every Na'vi has. Instead of tattoos, the Omatikaya often adorn themselves with jewelry, body paint for special ceremonies, and they let their glowing freckles serve as their decoration. But we did see Neytiri and Jake Sully and others don war paint, like white handprints or stripes, when preparing for battles or raids, but these paints are temporary and ritualistic, not permanent. Then we come to the Mangkwan, who take body marking very, very seriously. The Ash people cover themselves head to toe in war paint and scarification. The red and black might signify fire and ash, the elements that forged their life. The patterns also indicate rank, role, or personal achievements, similar to how Metkayina tattoos function, albeit in a more aggressive style. Beyond paint, the Mangkwan also ritualistically scar their bodies. Yes, scar. We've seen that Varang, the clan leader, has a series of scars on her face exactly where her bioluminescent dots would normally be. It appears she and others like her have deliberately scarred over those Awa-given glow markings. In other words, they quite literally erased the light from Awa on their bodies. This speaks volumes about their rejection of their old life and pain-made flesh. In real-world tribal terms, scarification often marks rites of passage or status, and it seems the Mangkwan have taken it to a whole new level. 8. Mixed bloodlines versus purebreds. Now, the bloodlines of these clans can be easily missed if you don't pay close attention. The Omatikaya and Metkayina each have lived in one place for millennia, relatively isolated. The Omatikaya are a tight-knit forest clan with ancestral roots in their region, same for the Metkayina among the reefs. In other words, each of those clans is fairly homogeneous in terms of Na'vi subspecies. All the Metkayina share the same aquatic adaptations because they all evolved together by the sea. But the Mangkwan clan is a whole other story. The Ash people, after their home was destroyed, essentially became a band of outcasts and exiles. According to the in-universe lore, the Mangkwan started taking in Na'vi who had been banished from other clans, including some who committed unspeakable acts like killing their own kin. They became a refuge for the unwanted. Over years, this means the Mangkwan likely included members, or descendants of members, from all over Pandora, not just forest folk. In fact, a Mangkwan warrior with distinctly Reef Clan hands was seen as part of Varang's crew. This means that at least one Metkayina or similar oceanic Na'vi ended up joining the Ash people. Of course, the whole clan now slathers themselves in ash and hides these differences on the surface. They're not a genetically distinct group in the way the Metkayina clearly are. You can think of them almost like a pirate crew made of sailors from different nations, but united by fate rather than blood. The advantage for the Ash clan is that they probably don't care one bit about pedigree, and if you're tough enough to survive with them, you are one of them. The disadvantage, from an evolutionary perspective, is that they haven't had thousands of years to develop specialized new traits as a group. They're more of a grab bag of standard Na'vi traits thrown into an abnormal situation. 9. Habitat and lifestyle adaptations. Needless to say, it's almost impossible to separate anatomy from environment and lifestyle. I mean, all three are closely connected to each other. Allow us to explain. Each clan's daily habits and skills differ hugely from one another, right? And their bodies have adapted accordingly. The Omatikaya live in a lush rainforest, specifically around the colossal home trees. They are primarily arboreal. This means everything from their musculature to their sense of balance is tuned for climbing, jumping, and running along branches. An Omatikaya warrior can scale a tree in seconds using just arm and tail strength. They also ride forest-specific creatures. For example, they use dire horses for galloping across the ground and mountain banshees for aerial travel. The forest Na'vi are also hunters of land animals and require stealth on foot. Compared to them, the Metkayina have a completely different skill set, and while we won't get into the details, we have to note that culturally speaking, they've even developed a Na'vi sign language for communicating underwater without speaking. Their bodies are so accustomed to water that even the way they move on land is a bit different. You might notice they have a slight sway, like a sailor who's used to the waves. The Metkayina can hold their breath for incredibly long periods and free dive to great depths to bond with their tulkun. Now, let's bring the third clan into the mix. For the Mangkwan, their environment is neither ocean nor lush forest, but a volcanic badland. Their village, once built around a home tree, was reduced to ash and cinders, so the survivors now live in a bleak, grim-dark landscape of charred trees, rocky terrain, and cave shelters. No sweet, juicy fruits or plentiful game here. The Ash people survive by being opportunistic raiders. In fact, the Mangkwan turn it into piracy and often attacked other Na'vi clans for resources. This means their lifestyle is largely nomadic and martial. Physically, living in an ashy wasteland forced them to adapt in smaller ways, like the ability to tolerate higher temperatures or being skilled at navigating in low visibility conditions filled with ash plumes and smoke. So if you think about it, both culturally and anatomically, they don't waste their time, effort, or energy on anything not related to survival or combat. Where a Metkayina spends afternoon hours communing peacefully with tulkuns or collecting shellfish, a Mangkwan likely spends that time looking for weapons or practicing with a bow or human guns or lying in ambush. Interestingly, because the Ash people's environment lacks the luminous flora of other regions, nighttime for them is truly dark, and there are no glowing plants to light the way. Perhaps as a result, they rely more on their other senses or on technology. 10. Spiritual outlook and behavioral evolution. Finally, we come to a difference that's a bit more abstract, but perhaps one of the most important. We're talking about the mindset and spiritual connection each clan has or doesn't have, and how even that is reflected in their physical world. The Na'vi have always been portrayed as living in harmony with nature and Awa, which is essentially the great life force connecting all things. The most sacred site for the Omatikaya is the Tree of Souls, and they act as its protectors. Every aspect of their culture, from the way they paint their bodies with natural dyes to how they bury their dead beneath the roots of the sacred tree, speaks about this bond that they have with Awa. The Metkayina too follow the way of water, which is just a different expression of Awa's will. They have their own spirit tree under the sea, which they call the Cove of the Ancestors, where they commune with Awa's ocean aspect. Physically and culturally, both Omatikaya and Metkayina gladly bear Awa's markings in the form of their bioluminescent freckles that glow when they are emotionally or spiritually moved, as if Awa is shining through them. They adorn themselves with symbols of nature's bounty like feathers and shells. Additionally, they refrain from needless violence and take only what they need. In short, they embody the Na'vi ideal of living with Pandora, not against it. But as we've seen throughout this video, the Mangkwan are entirely different and serve as the Na'vi version of heretics, to put it mildly. The Ash people have rejected Awa. After their darkest hour, they decided that Awa either abandoned them or is a force unworthy of worship. This is absolutely unprecedented in known Na'vi culture. It has radical effects on their behavior. The Mangkwan do not follow the sacred laws that clans like the Omatikaya and Metkayina hold dear. Where other Na'vi won't kill animals needlessly or fell trees indiscriminately, the Ash people don't care about that at all and are happy when it comes to pillaging and destroying stuff as and when it suits them. In fact, their very bodies are evidence of this philosophical schism. I mean, we earlier mentioned that they scar over Awa's luminous markings and cover themselves in ash, symbolically severing the bright connection to nature that other Na'vi proudly display. Behaviorally, they've become aggressive and antagonistic to other clans and are the reason why some Na'vi fight other Na'vi. In fact, the Mangkwan have gone so far as to ally with the RDA humans, which is a literal deal with the devil, to help hunt down Jake Sully and the Na'vi resistance. This is mind-blowing, considering in the first film, all Na'vi Na'vi united against the RDA. The Ash people are breaking every rule, and that extends to the biological fellowship of their species. They'll spill Na'vi blood, whereas Forest and Reef clans only ever fought in self-defense or ritual. What does this mean in terms of differences? It means the entire demeanor and emotional bearing of the Mangkwan differs from other Na'vi. An Omatikaya tends to be open, curious, and grounded in spiritual calm, like Neytiri teaching Jake to feel the forest. A Metkayina is proud but hospitable, with respect for the balance of life in the ocean, like Tonawari and Ronald's initially stern yet ultimately compassionate guidance. A Mangkwan, on the other hand, has this super heavy aura of grief-turned rage. Their posture, their hardened expressions, the very way they hold themselves speaks of a people who trust nothing but strength. They behave more ruthlessly in combat without caring about any sort of negotiation or trying to scare off enemies as Jake's clan did. The Ash people will shoot to kill. This ideological difference is what defines them as a clan. Marvelous verdict! From the vibrant blues of the Omatikaya forests to the teal waters of the Metkayina reefs and the ashen wastes of the Mangkwan, Pandora's Na'vi clans have this incredibly wide spectrum of anatomical and cultural variation. We've taken you through 10 of the most eye-opening differences, ranging from skin tone, eyes, tails, limbs, hair, body, build, and markings, to lineage, lifestyle, and spiritual ethos. And each one paints a picture of how these clans have evolved apart, yet remain connected by their shared origin. But yeah, that's all we got for you this time, guys, so we'll see you around.